Rishon Adinoi Avon Nasbi. Rema Korav Nafoli. אנחנו הקמנו בנסיידר. נהיה שיר, מלך אלמנו ויהיה כרגע. Yeah. So on page 32, and what he's explained is that there's two things that are necessary for the process of things to be created. Yesh mi'ayin. Number one, that every creation has its source, Lamaila, in the highest spiritual realm. Good morning. Thank you. And number two, and from there it has to evolve. And he explained how it must be hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of levels that has to evolve from Malach Gabriel, for example, that this should evolve into something so physical, like a rooster down here on Earth. So it goes through changes. And the changes, each change means it's going through a change of becoming less abstract and more concrete, less abstract and more formed, further away from the spiritual and closer to the physical realm. So eventually it becomes a physical creation, which in this case would be a rooster. But he adds that even that would not suffice, because if something would evolve, even millions and millions and millions of levels, even infinite levels, it could never evolve from spiritual to physical, because the physical is a whole new kind of existence. And there's nothing in the spiritual realm that is even a sort of a beginning of something physical. So how could it ever evolve into something physical? And therefore, at a certain point, we need the process of yesh me'ayin, which means that there's a jump from the spiritual to the physical. And that process is called yesh me'ayin. Something is becoming created from a place where it did not exist before at all. I just wanted to add one thing before we move on regarding the whole idea of ishtalshelus, that things evolve, like the Malach Gabriel evolves until it evolves into a rooster. One of the things which, of course, is very hard to understand, very hard to picture, what does that mean? But one of the things which makes it a little bit harder is in the case of something gashmish, let's say when we say that a seed of a tree evolves into a big tree. That was one example. Or a human seed evolves into a human being with organs and all the different parts of the body and all the cells and the way a human being is. In both of these cases, once it evolves into something new, what was there before no longer exists. In other words, once the seed evolves into a tree, there is no longer a seed. Once the human seed evolves into a human being, a full-fledged human being with all the organs, then whatever was there before, there's no longer exists. Here we're saying there's Malach Gabriel up there. It evolves into a rooster down here, but Malach Gabriel is still there, and the rooster is down here. Right. So what does it mean it evolves? If it evolves, then it shouldn't be there anymore.
Like I see, like you do the same thing, dissolves, but like what come out is not like the honey and the different.
So how can we explain it? So just a little bit of something to sort of compare it to is, let's say, in the human experience, if a person, let's say, screams out of pain, person screaming, their facial expression is pain. But where does it come from? Why is it happening? Because internally, they're feeling an emotion, which is pain. In other words, there's something that changes here physically. The sound, the voice that comes out of the person, the facial expression on the person, whatever they might be doing else, clapping their hands or jumping, whatever it is a physical reaction. But where does it come from? It comes from something they're experiencing inside, internally, emotionally. So the emotion that's inside evolves outwardly into these, and manifests in this way. And they both exist at the same time. The emotion is inside, and on the outside, you see these actions. If you take it a step further, and where does the emotion come from? If a person is in pain, or a person is in shock, or the person is scared because of something, there's no way it could happen unless in their head they understand that this is dangerous, or this is something painful. And in their head, the brain dictates that this is something that you should be afraid of, or you should be happy with, or you should be crying about it. It's tragic, because we see little children who don't understand these things don't react this way. If you don't understand, then why would you react that way emotionally? So therefore, there's like 3 stages here. Number one, what I understand, what I perceive in my head. I perceive this as something dangerous. That evolves into an emotion. Therefore, I'm panicking, or I'm afraid. And that evolves into an action, which is I'm running, or I'm screaming, or I'm shouting, which is something physical. So when we use the term that ishtalshlu, that one thing evolves from the other, that is a little bit easier to understand if you look at this kind of muscle. That A evolves from B, and B evolves from C, and they all exist at the same time. I don't know if you're following me or not. Still don't know. No? I'm saying if a person has a certain feeling, the feeling is in the heart. The feeling is not physical, right? Remember we said last week, the definition of physical is something that you could smell, touch, taste, see, or hear. It is a lo nitfas, and the 5 chushim, if you can't grasp it by any of the 5 senses, in context of Chassidus, this is called, it's not a physical entity. It exists. It's a very strong existence, but it's not a physical, it's something ruchni, right? But that fear evolves, if it comes outside, how does it evolve? It evolves in a person acting a certain way, whether it's laughing or crying or any other physical manifestation. That's called the shtalshlus. What's inside in my heart evolves into something physical outside. But in this case, the 2 things exist both at the same time. And then if we go a step further, what I'm feeling inside my heart also evolved from someplace. It evolved from my brain. Because my brain perceives that this is dangerous. My brain tells me that I should be running away from it and be afraid. Therefore, I feel fear in our heart, and therefore I run. So basically, it starts off here. This evolves, and on each level, it's something different. Here, it's something physical, jumping, running, crying, laughing. Here, it's an emotion. And here, it's something intellectual. So when we say that Malach Gavriel evolves into a rooster after thousands of levels of change, it's also the same thing. All these levels of change exist in the spiritual realm at the same time. But when it comes down here, what does it involve with? It evolves into a rooster. There was once a chassid. that explained a certain concept about the world of Atzilus. Atzilus, the fourth world, the highest world, why it is the way it is. And then he said, because of that reason, we find that in the world of Bria, also things are this and this way, and describes something specifically in the lower world of Bria. And then he said, and this explains why in the world of Yitzir, which is the third world, the lower world, things are a certain way, because it evolves from Bria and from Atzilus. And then he said, and that's the reason why the ears of a horse are pointed. It comes down to the bottom level. Yeah.
Wait, so before, after like, I guess the first step of the Ishmael, when it's evolved as much as it can, like to the physical, before the jump, does that mean that there's just like a rooster in Yitzir, like there's a rooster in the physical and the spiritual realm?
It's not a rooster. It means there's something there in the spiritual realm, which is not physical, but it corresponds. It has certain features. It has certain. In other words, when we talk about once we talk about the physical realm, it's different.
Okay.
But it has corresponding features and structurally of in the spiritual realm like the physical.
And then also like the way we say like the rooster is here and Malach Gabriel is the spiritual realm, like do all the like intermediary levels still exist? They still exist.
They still exist.
And that's the theme of the pointy ears.
That's right. And that's what it means when you look at this chart that I gave you. Look at this chart.
Mhm.
So that means there should be a rooster here, and a rooster here, and a rooster here. But it's not a rooster, it's something here, 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 here. And eventually it becomes the Gashmitic rooster. And the same thing with everything in the physical realm. And how many levels does it go through? So he says it has to be tens and hundreds of thousands of levels of change that something so spiritual becomes something so physical.
Is this symptom? This is like same idea?
Which idea?
Like,
This is Tzimtzum, right? This is what Tzimtzum means. But when you say something spiritual goes through Tzimtzum, becomes something physical, it's still, they're two different things, but it just means in this. I'll try to give an example. Again, it's not 100% example, but it's a similar idea. A person who's a composer of song, a niggun. So the way a composer, a true composer, composes a niggun, especially if you know the Chassidus nigunim, means a person is experiencing a certain emotion, and they're musically inclined. So by them, the emotion that they're feeling will express itself in the song that they sing. Which means you can't compare a piece of music, or let's say not music, vocally. You can't compare a song to an emotion. A song is a physical voice, physical sound, and the emotion is something which you can hear. It's something that exists in a different way. Nevertheless, we could say that the emotion that I'm feeling and the song that I'm singing are parallel to each other. There was one time where the Friedrich Rebbe asked a certain chassid to sing a niggun. He was a composer of Chassidish nigunim, or he was a singer. So, every Chassidish niggun has a certain sort of meaning behind it. This niggun is about tshuva. This niggun is about yearning to Hashem. This niggun is about love to Hashem. So he sang a niggun, and he said, this niggun was composed by this and this chassid, and is describing the experience of going into Yechidus to the Rebbe. We know that every chassid is connected to the Rebbe through his avodah, but the time with the highest point in the chassid Rebbe relationship is when the chassid has the opportunity to have a private audience with the Rebbe, just he alone and the Rebbe alone, and he asked the Rebbe about his personal path. At a Farbrengen, in a mimer, the Rebbe speaks in a general way. How you're supposed to daven, how you're supposed to learn, how to deal with this, how to deal with that. Something general that applies to all Chassidim. But when I go into Yechidus, that's the time that I pour my heart out about my personal issues, where I stand, where I feel I need to be strengthened. And I'm asking the Rebbe for guidance, and the Rebbe gives me personal guidance. So that's like the highest point of a chassid Rebbe relationship. So he said this song describes a chassid going into the Rebbe for Yechidus, right? And he sang the song. After he finished singing, so the Frierdiker Rebbe said, knowing that chassid, in this part of the Niggun, it should have been a little bit higher up. In other words, if you think of it, that the ups and downs and ins and outs of the song correspond to the emotion, knowing this chassid and knowing what it means to him for chassid going to Yechidus, then in this part of the song it should have gone a little bit up. So that means that the pattern of the song and the pattern of the emotion are identical, but this is in one realm. This is in the realm of emotion, and this is in the realm of the physical. So when we say that something physical is corresponds to something spiritual, it corresponds, but they're still two different worlds. In fact, what if I take this song that I'm singing and I write down musical notes? Do the musical notes correspond to the song also? The pattern of the notes, if you know how to read notes, are the ups and downs and the ins and outs and all the twists are exactly the way the song goes. There are people that could look at the notes, read it, and sing. So the notes also have a pattern and a certain form, and they're identical to the song, to the melody, but you can't compare a melody to lines on a piece of paper. And you can't compare a melody to emotions that are in the heart. And yet all three have the same pattern, have the same structure, and are all identical, but each one in a different world. And that's how it is with the Ruchnis evolving into Gashmis. So, yeah. Right, the pattern is the same, the structure is the same, the features are the same, but this is voice, and this is emotion. Yeah.
You're saying that the thing itself stays itself. It doesn't change as it goes down, as it evolves. If that thing in that world doesn't change, it just evolves and then it stays the same there, and then it stays the same there, and then it stays the same there.
Right.
It doesn't change.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Emotion for that would be like the emotions, that if my emotions express themselves in sound or in action, it doesn't change the fact that in my heart, this is the emotion that I'm feeling. Doesn't mean that it disappears from the heart and now it's just outwardly. This is what gives life to the physical manifestation that I see. Okay, so now we're on page 32, and we're starting with the paragraph that begins with the words 333. He's going to give a few more examples now. Part of this mimer is examples of how things in the physical evolve from the spiritual. So, of course, before the example was how the rooster evolves from Malach Gabriel, and now he goes into another example. This one is a little bit more difficult, and it's connected to a lot of other Maimarim and a lot of general ideas, so we won't really spend time on understanding it fully, just the general idea, which is, this also is the same explanation to what we brought down before. He asked the question that it says in the Medrash called Pirkei de Rabbi Elazar, Sha'omar, and he says, Eretz Meichan Abras, where was the earth created from? And he asked the question, what do you mean, where was it created from? Everything is Yesh Mi'ayin. And the answer is, in the Medrash, Mishaleg Tachas Kisa Kavod, under Hashem's throne, there's snow, and from that snow came the earth. If we're talking about physical snow up there under Hashem's throne, then the way we understand snow down here, where does snow come from? Just like we ask, where does the earth come from? So you might as well just transfer the question to the snow. Where does the snow come from? Okay, I guess there are different numbers here. Let me just say, sorry. On top of the page, look at the numbers at the top of the page. Hebrew and English says 32, right?
Oh, you're talking about the book or
The book,
the book? It's on page 30.
30?
Oh, yeah, 31.
No, but my book says 32. Maybe one of them is in the spiritual realm and the other one is in the physical realm. Oh, right. I'm looking at something different. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's page 30. Yeah. I didn't realize that it's a different print. Yeah. Must have been an earlier print. Okay. So it says, where does earth come from? From Shelet, from snow. Which snow? The snow that under Hashem's throne. No, wait a second. No. You know where it is? It's page 44, 45. It's a whole different print. Page 44, 45. What you read was from the first time you brought this medrash. That's before you explained anything.
Oh, we went too fast.
We're moving, yep. So again, the beginning of the paragraph 333. One can likewise understand the statement in Pirkei Rabbi Lazar, where it says, Eretz mehechon nivras. Where does earth come from? Where was it created from? And the answer is Mishaleg Shetachas Kisei HaKavod, from the snow that's under Hashem's throne. Ve'hinei im hoya shaleg gashmi. If you would understand this as shaleg gashmi, physical snow, commercial amata, the way we know it down here, we should be asking, where does snow come from? Just like we asked, where does the earth come from? What kind of answer is it? It comes from the snow, so where does the snow come from? So the shalag is something spiritual. It's a certain level in the spiritual realm. And in fact, now what he's going to say now, I'm just going to say the words because we're really going to get lost if we go into these things to understand it completely. But Sheleg is 333, which means it has Yechides, Asires, Meyas. In other words, it has the same number in singular, in the tens, and in the hundreds. Gimel is number 3 in the singular numbers. Lamed is 30, that's in the tens, 30. And Shin is 300. When you have 333, it means a number that has the same corresponding number in the singular. And in Kabbalah, we know that all numbers represent certain levels in the spiritual realm. Remember, we spoke about this, that, for example, when you have numbers in the Torah, that the flood lasted for 40 days. It's not just a historic thing that lasts for 40 days. But in Kabbalah, it'll explain how it relates to a certain level in the spiritual realm, and that level has 40 parts to it, 40 aspects to it, and that's why it's 40. And when it says in the Torah that we know that between Pesach and Shavuos we count 49 days, everyone knows how this corresponds to the 49 spheres. And the measurements in the Beis Hamikdash, this was 5 amas, this was 4, this was 2.5. This number, all the numbers correspond to different levels in the spiritual realm. So same as with the mitzvahs that we do. We take 3 matzahs on Pesach because the number 3 corresponds to something spiritual, which is relevant to matzah. We take 2 challah on Shabbos, not 3, because that corresponds to a different level that's related to Shabbos, and that's related to the number 2. And the same with all the things in Torah that have numbers. It's not just random or other explanations that are given. All the other explanations are sort of external explanations, which are all Torah, it's all emes. But the deeper explanation is that it corresponds to something in the spiritual realm that's related to this number. So here too, the shaleg is whenever the Torah speaks with singular numbers, that corresponds to the world of Asiya. Tens corresponds to the world of Yetzirah, and hundreds corresponds to the world of Bria. But here is going to say in the world itself, there's three parts. The Nimtza, 47. Let me just at least read what it says. Like, for example, so we're going to have Parshas Chayusara. And it says Asara was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years old. So there's so much in Chassidus and Kabbalah about the number that she was 100 and then 20 and 7, which each number, again, number 7 is the singular, number 20 is in the tens, and 100 is in the 100, 100, 500, 700, and how it corresponds to certain spiritual level. Basically, these are the three parts in the spiritual realm, which is Malchus, and Malchus is one, the lowest. Zah, the 6 meters, Zeir Ampin is the second, and Bina is the third. And that's the source of Oretz. So again, it's spheros, it's not physical snow, chas v'sholem, but it's tziches, liyes, derives, madreges, ishtalshelus. So there has to be tens of thousands of levels of involvement. And only then, mishavem b'der bri yeshmiayim, kinis mutzias oretz agashmi. So even though the Gemara, the Medrash knows that everything is yeshmiayim, but the Gemara is asking, before it becomes yeshmiayim, where is it coming from? And the answer is, it's coming from that place in the spiritual realm that's called Sheleg, that corresponds to these three things. And from there it evolves and evolves and evolves until it becomes the earth. That's one opinion. Then there's a medrash that gives another opinion, Shegeris Ma'ofer, not that earth comes from the snow under the Hashem's throne, but from the earth under Hashem's throne. So page 48, Hainum B'chinas Malchus Levad. When it says the earth, not snow, that's referring to Malchus, because earth is something with the source of earth is from Malchus. As it's known from another source, Minyan Offer Shalakarka Mishkan. We know that in the Mishkan was built differently than the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash had a floor, and the floor was made from stone. But in the Mishkan, it was earth. And it's known, when it's explained in the Zohar and other places, that the earth in the Mishkan corresponds to the sphere of Malchus. It comes from the earth of the Beis Hamikdash in the spiritual realm, which means, here's another example. We all know, just like there's a Beis Hamikdash down here, there's a Beis Hamikdash up there. In fact, one of the opinions are, when Mashiach comes, there's a difference of opinion, how will the Beis Hamikdash be built? One opinion is it'll be built by human hands, like the previous ones. The other opinion is it'll be built in a miraculous way, that the Beis Hamikdash up there will come down here. So what does that mean? That up there there's stones and there's wood. How come it doesn't fall down? So the answer is, up there it's a spiritual Beis Hamikdash. It's a little bit like the neshama and the guf. The neshama goes into the guf. So the spiritual Beis Hamikdash is the neshama of the physical Beis Hamikdash. And just like the neshama and the guf also are two things that are very different, but their structure is similar. In the guf, there are eyes, and there's nose, and ears, and a mouth, and hands, and a heart, and a brain. In the neshama, there's all these corresponding parts, but they are spiritual. So therefore, the same thing is with the Beis Hamikdash, and the earth in the heavenly Beis Hamikdash, that's sphere of Malchus, and that's where earth comes from down here. So again, how many levels do they have to go through? Tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of thousands of levels to come down. Now he uses a third example. Where does light come from? This is the medrash he brought in the beginning of the Maimer. Where does light originate from? And the answer is, Sata the Talis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put on his talis. Hashem has a nice, clean, white talis. There's good cleaners up there. Kalas Lavana, who b'chinas levusha keselek chiver. In fact, there's a pasuk. Here's one of the examples I'd like to show it to you inside. I hope I have it here. Let's look. It's a pasuk in Daniel. Let's see. Now look at page 57 in the booklet, in the reference booklet. So it's the book of Daniel, and he's talking about a vision that he saw. He saw Hashem. Hashem looks like someone ancient. So it's underlined in the Hebrew and the English. Va'atik Yemen Yasif, the one of ancient days sat. By the way, this is where the term Atik comes from in Chassidus. This is the source. Levushe Keselek Chiver, his garment, what he's wearing, is white as snow. The saresha and the hair of his head is also white, ka'amanaka, like clean wool. So his clothes are white, his hair is white. The only difference is the clothes are the white like snow, and the hair is white like wool. And again, in my modern Chassidus, the explanation, what's the difference between this white and that white, what the difference is. But what does it mean when it says Hashem was wearing a garment? He doesn't have any clothes like we have clothes. Obviously, it's something spiritual. And what does it mean that it's white? Obviously, something spiritual. And therefore, what he's saying is this is where light comes from. Like they, Levush Shaman, but he gives a little bit of explanation. The Levush, the concept of a garment means tzimtzum. What is the idea of a garment? A garment conceals and covers up. So it's like you have a light. It's a very bright light. It shines so brightly that it could be blinding. What you do is you put up a curtain, not a curtain that blocks it completely, but a curtain that diminishes the light. And now when the light shines, you can handle it because it's not so bright. So Hashem has a levush, has a garment that allows his spiritual light to shine into this world. And from that comes the physical light that we have. So in a sense, when it says it comes from the garment, which is white as snow, it means tzimtzum. It's another way of saying a garment, which is tzimtzum. For example, there's a pasuk in Tanakh, when it talks about Mashiach, it says, when Mashiach will come, lo yikonev oid merecha. Your teacher will no longer have a garment covering him. Who's our teacher? Hashem. Hashem has different names. So sometimes it's called our father, sometimes it's called our mother, sometimes it's called our shepherd, sometimes it's called our king. And there's a place where Hashem is called our teacher. Why is he our teacher? Because he gave us the Torah. So he's also our teacher. There are many facets to the relationship between Hashem and us. But what does it say about our teacher? That when Mashiach will come, lo yikonev oid merecha. He'll no longer be covered by a garment. Which means that right now there's a garment. The garment blocks the light. The garment conceals the light and allows only a little bit of light to shine through. And when Mashiach comes, it won't be there. So here too, where does it come from? Where does the world come from? Where does the earth come from? Where does light come from? From a spiritual light. But it has to go through the garment. The Yais Mitzias is Havas earlier, Vavis Madregas, the Shtashels. Again, how many levels? Myriads of levels and stages of evolvement and concealment and tzimtzum. And after all that, then we need the process of Yesh Mi'ayin, that the spiritual should jump and be transformed into something physical. He's not finished. There's no doubt that is a reason why he brings an example from a rooster, example from light, an example from earth, and now he brings an example of a lion. The same applies to all the details of creation. Even though it's not mentioned in a medrash, the medrash doesn't say the same thing that it says about the earth or about light, but really the principle applies to everything. Take, for example, a lion. Lamata, down here. A lion means a physical lion the way we know it. Also has to have a spiritual roots. Where are the spiritual roots of the lion? Sharsha, its roots are Arya Shibamerkava. It comes from the lion in the Merkava. So this we know that there's the chariot, the famous chapter in Cheskel Hanavi, that he writes down a vision that he saw, and he saw a chariot, and in the chariot there were four faces. One was the face of a lion, one was the face of an eagle, one was the face of an ox, and one was the face of a person. What he really saw was malachim, angels. One angel is called a lion, one angel is called an eagle, one angel is called an ox. And the way it's explained is again like with Gabriel. These are the angels that are the source for these animals here in this world. Which means all the wildlife, not just lions, all the beasts and wildlife, they all evolved from the face of the lion. All the farm animals, domestic animals, they come from the face of the ox. All the birds, they come from the face of the eagle. So it means this is the spiritual source of the line down here, is the line in the Merkava. So he says, actually, it has to happen in a way which in Chassidus is called shvira, which means a radical change. Even though there's a radical change, we still say that Sheirish Shemaka, this is the source. Imagine, in order for a physical lion to evolve from the lion in the Merkava is one of the holiest things that we see are described in the book of Yecheskel. So what comes from that? A lion, Shetera, a lion which is a predator, a lion that kills and eats other animals in a sadistic way. How could a lion that's so sort of evil come from a lion that's so holy? So it has to go through who knows how many levels. And after that, but then if Bri Yesh Mi'ayin comes the lion, the Gashmistic lion. Here he elaborates a little bit more. That even the lion in the Merkava also has a higher source. The source of the lion is even higher than what we just described. What we described was in the world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. I think I made a little diagram here in the back. If you want to see what a lion looks like. Just to make it a little bit more visual, all the way in the back, after all the pages, after page 81. Without going into the details, but basically, there's a line down here, Begashmius. But that line comes from, there's a level which is called line in the world of Asiya, as you see. Then there's line in the world of Yetzirah. Then there's a line in the world of Bria. And then there's a line in the world of Atzilus. And I don't even have it on the page, but he's going to explain that even higher than Atzilus, there's a level which is also called line. Hashem himself is sometimes referred to as a lion. And by the way, that's why you find in so many shuls that they have pictures of lion on the curtain of the Aron Kodesh. And in the Beis Hamikdash itself, on the curtains, there was a picture of a lion. Why was it there? Because that was a picture of the lion in the Merkava. But still, the picture was a physical picture. Because this physical picture is a manifestation of the spiritual life from up there. Yeah. I mean, of course, each one represents something specific. He's going to explain here, even I would think otherwise, how it actually is connected to Chesed in Atzilus, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the next paragraph is going to say that the lion comes from Chesed. Because in the Merkava, it says the lion is on Hashem's right, and the ox is on Hashem's left. And it's one of the questions we ask in Chassidus, if the lion is so high, it's on Hashem's right, how come down here it's a treif animal? And the ox, which is on the left, turns out to be a kosher animal. And that brings us to another principle in Chassidus, that the higher something is, the lower it falls. So Dafka the lion comes down to be a treif animal. Another discussion. But basically, yes, there's a lion at every level, which means the physical, try to imagine this, the physical features of a lion. If you'd go to somebody who studies zoology, I don't know what it's called, and they'll tell you what a lion looks like and how a lion acts and what are the physical organs in a lion and what makes him tick. All these things exist in all the lions on all the levels. But in each world, it's in a whole different context because it's something spiritual. The truth is, in our language, we also use a lot of words in a figurative way. If somebody says, there's, you know what, this is the key to this problem. A little boy, a little girl listening would think, oh, they must have a key. Looks like this. Well, why do you use the word key for? You don't mean a key, a physical key. Just like a physical key opens a lock. That's how this thing is what opens up this issue and allows this issue to work itself out. We're always using words that we don't mean physical and literally, we mean it in a figurative way. I always tell the story. The teacher here, Rabbi is here. No, that I was once in years ago. I was in the country, and one of my children were outside in a playpen, and there was a little girl, like a 3-year-old, next to him, and apparently she was annoying him, so he was crying. So I come out of my room, and I say, "Why is he crying?" I don't know, but I saw that she bothered him. I said, "No, if he's sitting quietly, please don't bother him." Okay, I go back to my room. It didn't take more than 10 seconds. The siren goes off again. She's crying. I walk outside. Of course, she's there doing something. So I said, her name was Leah. I said, Leila, I told you, if he's sitting quietly, don't bother him. So I didn't bother him. And anyway, he wasn't sitting, he was standing. So to a little child, when you say sitting, you mean literally sitting. Standing means literally standing. But we know when we use these words, we mean them in a figurative way. It's the concept of sitting, the concept of standing, the concept of resting, everything in our language could be physical, literal, and could be in a way which is figurative. So the lion physically is the way we know a lion, but all the features of a lion and the whole infrastructure of a lion exists in a spiritual way. And that itself in millions of different levels. Okay, to be continued.
Paul volunteered to change the time of appreciate that. Somebody wouldn't stand in the chair. Thank you.
This is